Algebra 1, Test 3 through Lesson 1.4 Study Guide. Number 1 says, when simplifying an expression, you blank perform operations inside grouping symbols first. Remember what grouping symbols are. Grouping symbols are your parentheses, your brackets, your braces. And please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. The P stands for parentheses, but it's more of a general term. Is called grouping symbols. That's always first, everybody. So the best answer for this one out of the three choices you have is A, always. Number 2 says write the fraction in simplest form. What number is the biggest number that goes into both of these numbers? Yeah, the number 2. 2 goes into 10 5 times, and it goes into 32 6 times. If you choose a number that's too small, at this step right here, there would just be another number that goes into both 5 and 16, but there isn't. So if you ever do choose one that's not quite large enough at the beginning, just do it again. You'll just have to do more than one step. Number 3 says write 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 using an exponent. So you're just writing it in exponential form. 10 times itself 4 times, or 10 to the 4th power. Write 3.7 to the 3rd power in standard form. So all 4 is the reverse of what 3 is. So 3.7, some of y'all might have did more than you had to for this one, times 3.7 times 3.7 times 3.7. That's it. And the only reason you didn't, parentheses were not necessary in this case. I just included them to where I didn't put a dot between them, and you'd see dots and decimals. I just didn't want it to be confused. So that would be considered standard form. If you would go ahead and give the number when you multiply 3.7 times itself that many times, yes, to the 3rd power. Thank y'all, everybody. Just wondering why those hands were going up. 3.7 to the 3rd power. If you gave the number that it actually became, that would be called evaluating it, though. But this is what it means when it says write it in standard form. Number 5 says 0.004 times 1.8. Don't let the decimals intimidate you. Just do the number 18 times 4. That's all that is, and then we'll move the decimals in a second. 8 times 4 is 32. 4 times 1 plus 3 is 72. And then see how many times you got to move the decimal. You got to move it 1, 2, 3 times for that one, 4 times for that one. So if it starts here, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to have to put in 2 zeros. So 0.0072. Number 6 and 7 are adding and subtracting with denominators that are not common. 9 and 5 is not the same. 8 and 5 is not the same. So you need to find the smallest number that they both go into. Remember, you can always multiply 9 times 5 and get the number 45 to start there. There may be one that's smaller. Sometimes there is one that's, but that's an easy place for most people to start. Multiply 9 times 5. If you do that, you get the number 45. So we have to convert both of these fractions into the bottom number 45. Again, there may be one smaller. Okay. What do you multiply 9 by to get 45? You multiply it by 5. We just did that. So you multiply the top one by the same 5, and that gives you 25. Same question on the other one. What do you multiply 5 by to get 45? It's 9. Do the top number by 9 and you get 27. Now you have common denominators of 45. So we have an equal sign that's set up. It's not necessary, but we'll keep it like that. Over 45. Add 27 and 25, and you're going to get the number 52. And then determine if there's a number that goes into both 52 and 45, and there is not. So this is a simplified fraction. Do the same thing with 8 and 5. You got to make that bottom number the same. There may be a number that's smaller than 8 times 5, but we're going to go with the number 40 to start. And then all we'll have to do is simplify the fraction at the end. 8 times 5, so 7 times the same 5 is 35. 5 times 8, so 1 times the same 8. Now you got common denominators. Leave that bottom number as 40. 35 minus 8 is going to be 27. So you have 27 over 40, and then determine if there's a number that goes into both 27 and 40 to simplify it, and there isn't. Number 8 says 2 over 9 times 1 over 2. Anytime you multiply fractions, you can cross cancel or you can multiply straight across. If you cross cancel, 2 cancels out 2, 2 divided by 2. And when you go straight across, 1 times 1, which is what would be left, is 1. And 9 times 1 is 9. If you just went straight across and got 2 times 1, you got 2. 9 times 2, you got 18. You divided it when you put 2 into both of them into itself once and into 18 9 times. It came back to 1 over 9. Number 9 says 4 over 8 divided by, if that looks like a plus to you, make sure you make a correction. Divided by 5 over 3. 4 over 8, you change division into multiplication and you multiply by the reciprocal. 5 over 3 becomes 3 over 5. When you multiply straight across, 4 times 3 is 12 and 8 times 5 is 40. Then determine what number is the largest number that goes into 12 and 40. 2 definitely goes into it. It goes into 12 6 times and it goes into 40 20 times. Now look at that number again. There's another number that goes into both of those. We could have used a bigger number. 4 would have gone into it. But in this case, 2 goes into it again. 2 times 3 is 6. And 2 times 10 is 20. Now it's simplified. So if you ever use the wrong number to simplify one that's not quite big enough, just do it again. And you'll get to the right number. Just don't leave it undone. Write it as a decimal. 1 over 8. That means 1 divided by 8. Well, 8 doesn't go into 1, so you got to add a 0.0. So we want to see how many times does 8 go into the number 10. It goes into it once. So 1 minus 10, 1 times 8 is going to be 8. So 10 minus 8 is going to be 2. We'll bring down another 0. 8 goes into 22 times. 2 times 8 is going to be 16. It's just long division, everybody. 4, then we'll bring down another 0. 8 goes into 45 times. So we have the decimal 0.125. Number 11 says, write as a fraction in simplest form. Easiest way to write fractions is to look and see which place everything is. This is the 10th place. And this, since it's the second one, is the 100th place. Notice we just added another 0. So what this is saying is 75 per 100. Remember, per 100 just means percent. We're not writing in a percent just yet. We just want to write it in a fraction in simplest form. The number 25 goes into each of these. It goes into 75 three times, and into 400, 100 4 times. 3 over 4 is the simplified fraction. Number 12 says to write it as a percent. Again, tenths place, hundredths place. So it's saying 38 per 100, which means 38%. So if you wanted to write it as that, in order to make it percent, percent means per 100. So this is the same as being 38%. Another way, and the way most people do this, is they move that decimal over once, twice to the right, and they get the same 38%. Number 13 says 1/3. So again, written as a percent. Now it's saying 1/3, not 1/300th, or out of a percentage or per 100. So you have to do 1 divided by 3, just like we did a minute ago. 3 goes into 10 3 times. Minus 9 is 1 and 0. And it's going to keep doing that. It's going to keep repeating and repeating like that. So it's saying, now that's saying what I have written there, 0.33. Again, the decimal place, or the digit after 2 after the decimal, is per 100. So that's percent. So when you move that decimal over once, twice, you would call it 33, and we could write it like this, 0.3 repeating, because that's what's going to happen, percent. 33.3%. Number 14, greatest common factor. What is the largest number that goes into both of these? Well, the easiest way to do this is to take the smaller value, or the number that you know has fewer factors in it. 10 is a smaller number than 58. 1 times 10 gives you 10, and 2 times 5 gives you 10. There are no other numbers that you can multiply by and get the number 10. So don't use the factors of 58, use the factors of 10. Well, let's go through it. You can't multiply 10 by something and get the number 58, so that doesn't work. 58 doesn't end in 5 or 0, so you can't multiply it by 5 to get 58. So check 2. It's an even number, so 2 is the greatest common factor of both 10 and 58 for number 14. Now 15 is the other one you got to know, the least common multiple. The smallest number both of these go into. All this means is when you count 20, 40, 60, 80, it keeps counting like that. You do the same thing with your 15s. 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, it keeps counting. Notice though, the least common means the smallest number that they have in common, which is 60. '16 says find the perimeter. You have 4 feet and you have 2 feet. Remember, perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Or you know that if the one on the left is 4 feet, this one's 4 feet, the one on the bottom is 2 feet, this one's 2 feet, you could add them up. 4 and 4 is 8, 2 and 2 is 4, 8 and 4 is 12. Or you could plug them into the formula that I wrote. Perimeter is 2 times the length, we'll call it 4 feet, plus 2 times the width, we'll call it 2 feet. Again, 8 plus 4, your perimeter in this case would be 12 feet. 17 says a car travels 408 miles in 7 hours. Find the unit rate, round to the nearest tenth. Rate equals distance over time. Find the unit rate. That's speed. Think of your speedometer in your car. Distance over time, miles over hours. So right here, when we label this 408 miles, distance, 7 hours, time, unknown amount, rate. So when we plug each of these values in, rate is unknown, or 408 is your distance, miles. 7 hours is your time. 408 divided by 7, 7 goes into 45 times, and you're left with 38. 408 says rounded to the nearest tenth, so 408 divided by 7 is 58.2857, and it continues past that. So your rate is equal to 58, and it keeps going past that 0.2857, round to the nearest tenth, which means 1 space after the decimal. So we look to that next number 8. It's greater than 5. Remember, 5 or greater rounds that 0.2 up to 0.3. So your rate is approximately 58.3 miles per hour. Number 18 says an athlete runs a 200-meter course in 33.3 seconds. Find the average speed. Again, so we're looking for average speed. That's rate. 200-meter course, that's distance. 33.3, that's time. We're using the same formula. Rate equals distance over time. So we're looking for the rate. That's equal to the distance over the time. In this case, our distance is 200 meters. And our time is 33. That looks like I wrote the word zoom. 200 meters, 33.3 seconds. Divide 200 by 33.3, and it comes out to 6.006, and it keeps repeating that way. So when we're looking for our rate, it says round again to the nearest tenth. So we only want 1 decimal place after. The next one is a 0. It's not 5 or greater, so our rate is approximately 6.0 meters per second. Okay, we're writing algebraic expressions for the phrases given for 19 and 20. 19 says the product of m and 11. Product's one of those words that means multiply. Of m times 11. You can write it that way, m times 11, or you can make it even simpler and say 11m. That would probably be a better version. Number 20 says 2 times, there's multiplication again, the sum of S and Y. So the sum means plus. You know times means multiply. So the sum of S plus Y should look like that. And you want to say 2 times that. The only way to add or to get the sum of S and Y first before you multiply 2 times it is to put it in parentheses. Now it says 2 times the sum of S and Y. 21 says define a variable and write an expression for the phrase. The quotient, there's that word that means to divide, of 10 times a number, there's a variable, and 8. So 10 times a number, 10x, 10 times x. Quotient means to divide, and that divided by 8. 10 times a number and 8. (22) says to evaluate u plus xy when u is 14, x is 6, and y is 2. U is 14 plus x is 6 times, since it's right next to y, 2 is y. So now you got to do the multiplication. 6 times 2 first, you get 12. When you add that to 14, you get 26 is the simplified version. 23 says a pair of shoes costs $27.99 and the sales tax is 8%. UC equals P plus RP. So the cost is going to be the total cost. P is the price, R is the sales tax rate. So the total cost equals the price, $27.99, plus the rate. Remember with rate, anytime you're multiplying by percentage, you have to move the decimal once, twice. So you're saying 0.08 times the price again, $27.99. So you need to do the multiplication first. 0.08 times $27.99. When you multiply those two, you get 2.2392. And then you want to add that to $27.99. So plus $27.99. You get $30 and 0.2292 is the cost. Remember, with money, you only want to go to 2 digits. So you want to go to, say, 0.22. And this one tells you to round that second 2 to make it, say, $30.23 or $30.23.